It all started 2 weeks before their wedding. While Chidi was cooking in the kitchen, his wife walked up to him and held him from behind. "Babe, I want to ask you for something," she said. "All right. What is it?" Chidi replied softly. That day, Chidi's wife said she needed to have a private room, all to herself. Chidi never wanted that, and they argued over it. Chidi's wife stood her ground and even returned the engagement ring to him. Chidi became soft when he noticed how rigid she was with her choice and eventually gave in. 2 weeks after their wedding, Chidi's wife told him that she doesn't sleep at home every first day of the month. Chidi got freaked out and asked her why, but she smiled and left him. Initially, Chidi thought it was a joke, but the following day, which happened to be the first Monday of the month, she vanished without a trace, and he couldn't reach her, nor could anyone else. Chidi got pissed and called her parents, but they too told him that ever since his wife turned 19, after her level 100 in the university, she never sleeps at home the first Monday of the month. A chilling fear ran down Chidi's spine as he realized the depth of concern for the person he had married. It then occurred to him that he and his wife had never met on Mondays during their dating days. Chidi began to reach out to some of her childhood friends that he knew, who were still friends with her. They also attested that this had been his wife's routine ever since her matriculation. No one had any knowledge of how Chidi's wife spent her Mondays. Chidi chose to remain awake, anticipating her return. He stayed up until 4 a.m. before finally sleeping. Upon waking the next morning, there was still no sign of her. All he noticed was that his breakfast was prepared, and underneath it was a paper with the note, "Good morning, sweetheart. Enjoy your breakfast." While coming back from work, Chidi was already pissed, waiting to get home and pick a fight with her. But then again, she wasn't back when he got home. Somehow his dinner was prepared. Chidi walked close to it and saw another note written, "You're welcome, my love. I know you're upset, but I will soon be back." Immediately his mind recalled the room he gave her, and he rushed to it. But it was locked. He knocked and knocked, but no one answered. Chidi still decided to stay awake, but unfortunately he got very tired due to not having enough sleep the previous night and fell asleep on the couch in the parlor. He was shocked when he saw himself the next morning in his room, lying right beside his wife. How did she get in when the door was locked? He tried to wake her up, but she didn't respond, claiming to be very tired and needing more sleep. Chidi kept on observing her, deep in thoughts that he almost forgot it was a working day. He realized himself when his alarm clock rang. His wife also woke up to go prepare his meal for work. Chidi was still applying deodorant and admiring how wonderfully and beautifully God made him when he heard the sound of the door and footsteps. He turned and looked. It was his wife. "Babe, so how was the food I prepared for you yesterday? Did you enjoy it?" she asked with a seductive voice. Chidi stared at her for a while with an outrageous look in his eyes. "Where did you go to, and why was your mobile phone switched off?" he asked, angered. "Babe, it has always been like that ever since my matric, and no one has ever complained. Why make a huge deal out of it?" she said with innocent looks on her face. Chidi got upset and wanted to pick a fight with her, but then again, a thought popped up in his head. "I am going to investigate your movements secretly," he said to himself in silence and faked a smile. At the office that day, Chidi asked his secretary if she knew of any good detective he could send on a private mission. She smiled and handed him her brother's number. Chidi took the number and immediately dialed it. On the phone, he made a self-introduction, and the detective did as well. Chidi gave him a small piece of information on what the job was, and he accepted, so they fixed a date to meet. Later that evening, when Chidi returned, he was shocked to see a debit alert worth N5 million on his phone. He froze as thoughts ran through his head about losing such a huge amount of money. He was still wondering who it did when his wife called and said she went shopping with his debit card. An hour later, Chidi saw his wife opening the door and directing some men who were carrying fridges. Again, he was speechless, wondering what she needed more than 10 refrigerators for. He folded his hands in confusion as he watched her move all the refrigerators into her private room. Chidi tried asking her, but she only smirked and left with no reply. It was a Saturday morning when the detective called and fixed a meet-up point. As fast as he could, Chidi rushedly prepared and went to the meeting point. The detective asked him a few questions, and Chidi happily gave him every detail of whatever he asked. The next Monday morning, Chidi's wife told him the same thing, that she wasn't coming back that night. He was delighted because he knew the detective was at work. The next day, Chidi didn't bother staying awake, waiting for his wife to come back. He woke up the next day to find his wife sleeping innocently on the bed. He got prepared and left. When he got to work later on that day, he kept staring at his phone, checking if the detective would call. Just as he wished, the detective called during his late hours of work. Chidi was thrilled to see his phone ring with the detective's number. He answered, and the detective asked him to come over to discuss his findings. Right after work, Chidi drove directly to the detective's house. The detective expressed concern about Chidi's choice to bring his car, emphasizing the risk of someone following him. After serving Chidi hospitably, the detective informed him that his wife joined some top gunmen at an uncompleted building. He even gave him the address to the building. While they were discussing some details, both Chidi and the detective began coughing. It got worse, and they both started choking. The detective directed Chidi to hide in a closet, and there he stayed until he fell unconscious. The next thing Chidi knew, he woke up the next day at 5 a.m. He searched the whole house, but there were no signs of the detective. What might have gone wrong? Chidi asked himself. He brushed himself off and drove back home. His wife was still asleep, so he didn't bother waking her up as he prepared for work. About to leave for work, Chidi's wife called him and said she had a present for him. She handed him a watch that looked very expensive. Chidi wore the watch to work, but as he passed his secretary, she smiled and said, "You've gotten acquainted with my brother to the extent he gifted you his favorite watch," before walking away. "Wait," Chidi called her back. "When last did you call your brother? His number isn't going through," he asked her. "It's been a while. Let me try it now." She pressed her phone's power button and began dialing her brother's phone number. They tried several times, but it only rang with no pickup. After many trials, the phone automatically turned off. Chidi got anxious and took off for the rest of the day, returning home. Luckily, his wife wasn't around, and he began searching her closet for evidence. After 2 hours of searching, Chidi found the phone in one of his wife's small boxes, which was kept in the deepest part of her closet. On his way out, something caught his attention at the front of his wife's private room. He was shocked to see what it was as he got closer. It was reddish in color and had a liquid texture. He could see blood on her doorstep. What was blood doing in the house? He pondered as he tried to open the door. He was surprised to notice that the door was unlocked, revealing a man observing something in one of the fridges. The man immediately punched Chidi, throwing him to the floor. At first, Chidi thought he was going to die, but as he opened his eyes, he saw the man walking gently towards him. With a pounding heart, Chidi began to look around to see if there was anything he could use to defend himself. Turning to his left and right, Chidi found a pair of scissors, which he used to puncture the man's stomach. He kept putting the scissors in and out of his stomach until the man gave up his last breath. As the man fell lifeless, Chidi heard someone clapping from the toilet located at the end corner of the room. He turned and gazed at the person who was revealed to be his wife. Chidi rolled to a corner. He was filled with guilt as he watched. His wife clean the bloodstains, and also lift the man into the fridge with a broad smile plastered on her face. After she was done, Chidi quickly went to check the fridges and was frightened to see a bunch of dead bodies inside. He returned to the corner and kept vibrating like a child. After about 3 hours, Chidi got a call from his wife asking him to come to the dining. Chidi didn't know what to do, so he quietly walked to the dining and sat coldly. After a while, his wife walked in with his favorite dish, jollof rice and chicken. She forced him to eat, which he did, even though he had no appetite. She kept smiling and gazing at him as he ate. She kept staring at him with a smile, to the extent that Chidi thought she poisoned the food. "Don't worry, I didn't poison the food. I'm just happy that you did complete it. I was scared I wouldn't make it this week, but thank God, you made it possible. I guess we should work together as lovers and family." Chidi's wife broke the silence between them after feeling that Chidi was suspecting her. "I would never join you in your wickedness. In fact, I'm done with this. Marriage, leave, or I'll call the cops," Chidi said, although a bit shaky. "You're already my partner. I mean, take a look at this video." His wife opened her phone and showed him a video of him killing the man. "Are you in or not?" she said with an evil grin on her face. Chidi didn't answer. She left. It was another Monday morning when Chidi's wife called him and asked him to kill anyone who walked through the door asking for her. "But I killed one person for you last week. Please spare me," Chidi pleaded with her. She gazed at him, then uttered, "Follow my commands, boy." Chidi transformed into her servant, no longer a husband. While sleeping on the couch, someone knocked on the door. Chidi immediately grabbed a knife and went to open the door. "Brother, I'm looking for Auntie. She asked me to come," his brother said as Chidi opened the door. Chidi became powerless and begged him to leave, but before he could make him leave, his wife coughed right behind him. On seeing Chidi's wife, his brother pushed him aside and went in. Chidi's wife winked at him with an evil grin. Chidi wasn't himself as he sat on the parlor couch, thinking about how he would kill his younger brother, the last-born of their family. A few seconds after his brother and his wife went inside, his wife returned to meet him. "It's time," she said, and walked away. Chidi coldly followed her to their bedroom, where his brother lay unconscious on the bed. "Stab him now," she ordered. "I can't, that's my brother lying there. Please stop, don't hurt him." Chidi begged her amidst tears. Soon, everything went blank, and Chidi thought he was unconscious until he saw his hands holding a knife, pierced into his brother's stomach. That was when it occurred to him that she possessed him to do it. He cried all through the night like a baby. The next day at work, Chidi wasn't himself to the point that his secretary noticed. When she asked him what was wrong, the guilt in him made him confess everything to her, including the cause of her brother's death. She first cried with him for a while before letting out a smile and walking out of the office. He couldn't even dare to stop her because she never deserved the hurt. After work, Chidi returned home to find his wife lifeless on the couch, with a knife pierced through a note down to her chest. Chidi looked into the note, which said, "Play the record." He quickly looked around and found a phone. He turned it on and played the sound recording. In the recording, Chidi's wife confessed that the reason she killed people was because she wanted to sleep with their corpses. She said it started when she was about to register in university and had no money to do so. Unfortunately, she found a married man who promised to pay her fees if she would sleep with him. Without hesitation, she accepted, and while in the act, they were caught by the wife. In tears, the wife cursed her, and ever since then, she had been killing people and sleeping with their corpses every Monday. Chidi was astonished by the words he heard. He called the cops and reported everything to them, but the person who killed his wife, no one knew except him. Chidi never even got to say thank you to the person because she never came to the office to work again.